that if you'd like to use the CART services for closed captioning, just click on CC and then show subtitles to turn the captions on. My name is Maura Pensack, and I'm the housing liaison to the city manager here in Cambridge. I'm happy to be here to facilitate today's important presentation. Before we get started though, I wanted to say a few words about the launch of our Housed in Cambridge Information to Open Doors campaign. Then we'll explain again about how this webinar will work, and then we will hear from the panelists. Housed in Cambridge is a year-long citywide campaign that we are kicking off this month with this panel. So welcome. You're here at the start, and we hope you will find this panel and other panels that we will be hosting over the coming weeks and months useful and helpful in your journey. This campaign is organized by many departments here in the city and is also supported by many of our provider partners who offer affordable housing opportunities and housing-related services and resources. We know without a doubt that accessing and understanding housing opportunities can be confusing and overwhelming. While there are many agencies and organizations, it can be difficult to know where to start, and it can be very overwhelming to stay on top of what to do next. So we hope this campaign helps to connect the dots between all of those resources in the city and also connect you directly to any and available opportunity. To that end, this campaign will include webinars such as this one, as well as interactive online housing guides, story map that's being developed, a social media campaign about resources and services that are available, and hopefully, when we're able to gather again, some in-person events such as roundtable discussions and resource fairs. In the meantime, we hope that you'll let your friends, family, and neighbors know about this campaign and tune into the upcoming panels when you can, or hope they will be posted online soon. And let us know your thoughts and feedback about what else you would like to learn and what you would find useful. One other word before we move on. I always think it's important to recognize history and to recognize the work that's come before us. The issue and challenge of affordable housing has and continues to be a priority for the city manager, the mayor, and the city council. All the leaders of our city and staff in all the many departments, as well as our provider partners, are committed to making our city affordable for everyone. So I want to acknowledge that while this particular campaign is new, the city has been working to advance affordable housing opportunities and to inform and educate our residents for a very long time. In particular, to get the word out about accessing affordable housing, the Community Development Department and the Human Rights Commission have organized an annual affordable and fair housing resource day for many years. Crystal Rosa from the Human Rights Commission and Emily Solomon from the Community Development Department have been the key organizers of that annual event. Today's panel and the campaign are built on the foundation of their work. So thank you, Emily and Crystal, for bringing us here today. And with that, I'm going to turn it over briefly to Crystal to explain the logistics of how this webinar will work. Crystal?
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen now. And here we go. Computer. Okay. There we go. So let me move. Sorry if this is taking a little coordination here. Present. Great. So if you would like to participate in today's event, please type your question through the Q&A box. You'll see that our chat function is disabled. So presenters will be able to view your questions once I provide them, and we will be opening to questions as soon as our presenters are done with their introductions. And presenters will verbally respond to as many questions as possible throughout the presentation. Please type, just understand that your typed questions will not be recorded. And if you'd like to send an anonymous question, just click send anonymously. And I want to make sure everyone knows that we will be providing an email after the event in a couple days with everyone's follow-up information, emails, and some more resources for you. So I'm going to stop sharing now. There we go.
Okay, thank you, Crystal. Again, welcome to everyone. Let's get started. Today's panel, Affordable Housing Options, Opportunities, and Pathways. We have three terrific panelists with us, all with extensive knowledge, experience, and information to share about how to go about applying for affordable housing opportunities. Each will talk about some specific information and opportunities, and then we will answer the questions that have come through the Q&A. Something to keep in mind is that we know applying for housing can be complex and confusing. There are many acronyms, and to some extent, one has to learn a whole nother language to really figure out and understand and navigate the housing world. Also, as a wise colleague once said, access to a wait list is not access to housing. So while we can't promise to get everyone into housing through this panel, we do hope we will make it easier to access and that you'll learn how and where to get the resources and services to assist you in that journey. Please do not be afraid to ask any question or send a comment and/or contact us at the end of this panel. And at the end, we will have our contact information listed. So now I will introduce the three panelists. Lene Tolentino, Associate Housing Planner from the Community Development Department. Lynn Tyree, Human Services Case Manager from the Department of Human Service Programs in the Multi-Service Center here in Cambridge. And Hannah Bolcom, the Director of Lease Housing for the Cambridge Housing Authority. And we will start with Hannah.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Maura. Thank you, Crystal. I'm so happy to be here. I used to enjoy going to this resource fair every year in person, so sad not to be able to do that this year, but we will make do and hope to see everybody again next year. So happy to talk about this from Cambridge Housing Authority's perspective. So as Maura mentioned, there's a lot of different types of housing, a lot of different types of wait lists, both in Cambridge and outside of Cambridge. And I'm going to speak specifically about the Cambridge Housing Authority waiting lists and process. So to start, Cambridge Housing Authority has a variety of different types of housing options. You may have heard of public housing, you may have heard of Section 8 housing, and in some cases there's similarities between these programs, and in some cases there are differences. So just generally speaking, when we refer to public housing, we're often referring to housing that is owned by the housing authority or an affiliate of the housing authority in close ownership with the housing authority. So there are a lot of different sites around the city or properties. Some of them are larger developments. Some of them are smaller and more scattered site developments that are actually owned, operated, and managed by housing authority staff. There's also, and some of that housing is called public housing. Some of that is Section 8 housing as well, but it's owned by CHA. We also have Section 8 housing that's owned by private owners. Some of those owners are in Cambridge, some of them are outside of Cambridge. So they might be owned by a nonprofit such as Homeowners Rehab or Justice Start, or a for-profit developer. And they're around the city, and CHA has partnerships with these owners and units available, and we pull off of our waiting list to fill those units. There's also Section 8 housing where the assistance is mobile. So you might have heard of a mobile voucher, a mobile Section 8, or a tenant-based voucher. That's a type of voucher that is not tied to a specific building or a specific property. You can take that voucher and you can move anywhere in the United States or territories, including Puerto Rico. And there are rules associated with it, but generally it's mobile and you can take it anywhere. So there's also state programs. Some programs are federally funded, some programs are state funded, some programs are for veterans, some are for elderly, some are for persons with disabilities. So there's a variety of different programs that we administer both in Cambridge and outside of Cambridge. So when you're thinking about applying, you might want to think about, well, what type of housing am I looking for? So am I looking for the type of voucher that I can take anywhere in the country? Or am I looking for housing specifically in Cambridge and in specific neighborhoods of Cambridge? Some people really want to be in North Cambridge. Other people want the flexibility to move anywhere. So you really have to think about what's my personal situation, what am I looking for, and sort of weigh your options. So the way that you applied, so we have over 30 different waiting lists that you can apply to. Some of that is CHA owned housing. Some of that's housing where CHA has partnerships with other owners. And some of that, one of those waiting lists is for a mobile voucher. So in all cases, the application process is the same, the initial application process. So all of our applications are available online. So if you go to our website, which is www.cambridge-housing.org, there's a little button in the top right that says apply for housing. If you click that button, it should take you to our waiting list landing page, and it's going to have all sorts of information about our waiting lists. It's going to have details about the different lists you can apply to, the income requirements and guidelines, and some of the policies for each of those lists. And then it takes you to the application. So the application, it only usually takes a few minutes to complete. It's 2 different screens. So you go in and you fill out your information about yourself and your other household members who will be on your application. And it'll ask you a few questions. And then it's going to ask you also what lists you wish to apply to. So in the past, there was a limit. You could only apply to up to 3 of CHA's housing lists at a time. As of a few years ago, we no longer have that requirement, and you can check off all 33 lists. And you can apply to all of them at once with one click. So that's something that I think we wanted to make all of our different lists more accessible for folks to apply to, and not make you have to fill out many applications at once when your information is the same. So you can apply to as many lists as you like. And when you're on the application, there'll be a little place where you can click details, and you can see information about each list that you're applying to. So it'll tell you where it's located. It'll show the breakdown of how many 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms there are. So if you need a 3-bedroom unit, you wouldn't apply to a site that only has studios or 1 bedroom. So it gives you information like that so you can make an informed choice. It also tells you where it's located. So if you know that you don't want to live in, or you don't want to be selected for a development that's in East Cambridge, then you wouldn't select those units. So it gives you a lot of information so that you can make the choice that's best for you and your household. So when you are finished completing the application, you click apply. And if you've put in an email address, then it will send you a receipt. And it's going to tell you the date and time that you applied. It's going to tell you a list of all of the different lists that you applied. So in the past, years ago, when you would fill out a paper application, you'd submit it, you would never get a receipt. So in this case, you get a receipt, you get a confirmation number, so that when you are checking your status later on, you know exactly the date you applied and what list you applied to. The other thing we've set up is an applicant portal. So usually within a few days after you apply, you can go into this applicant portal and you can check your status. You can see all of the lists that you're on. You can see what your status is, waiting, and then you can see all of your household members that you have listed, and you can see what number you are on each of the waiting lists. So we want that information available to you so that you can log in and check and see. You can see where, as you start to get closer to the top of the list, you can make sure that you keep an eye out in the mail for when CHA or an owner is going to reach out to you. It's very important to keep your mailing address and any other information up to date with the CHA. CHA is going to reach out to you via the mailing address that you put on your application. So if that changes, then you need to make sure that you let us know so that we can update it. Because if we reach out to you and you don't respond, then you're going to get removed from that waiting list. So if there's one thing I'm going to say a bunch of times today, to make sure that you update your address with us, your physical mailing address, because that is the primary way that we are going to reach out to you when you get to the top. So if you don't have, if where you're staying now is not a reliable mailing address, some people, they'll put a family member, or they'll put a, you know, somebody somewhere that they know the person is not moving and that they can collect their mail for them there. So just make sure that you do that. And then when you're monitoring your status on the list, as you start to get close to the top, it's always okay to, call and check in and just make sure everything is up to date. So we do have that applicant portal available online. If you're not able to access it online, we do have a waitlist status checking phone number, which I didn't pull up in front of me, but I can put it in the chat or send it to Crystal. CHA's main phone number is 617-864-3020. And if you leave a message on that answering machine, then within a few days, someone will give you a call back and can either assist you in applying to the wait list if you're not able to do it by yourself online, or assist you in checking your status on that on the waiting list that you applied to. So I guess one more thing or a few more things I'll mention. Maura, let me know if I'm running over my time, but different programs have different income requirements. And I know others on the call, Lene is going to talk about that as well. But for CHA's programs, generally, most of our programs, you have to be below 50%. Your income has to be below 50% of the area median income. This is something that gets published by the federal government each year. Currently, for a one-person household, that's $47,000 a year. So for most of the CHA programs, for a one-person household, you would need to be making under $47,000 a year. For a family of four, that would be $67,000. So these amounts get updated every year. So if you're slightly over that amount, I wouldn't let that deter you from applying, because most of our waiting lists do take, a few years. And so you might, have your income change by the time you get to the top. But generally, for one person, it would be around $47,000 a year at this point. We also have different preferences and priorities on our waiting lists. So if you live or work in Cambridge, then you do get priority on the list. Also, if you're a veteran, you have priority on the CHA waiting lists. So I'm just looking down at my notes here. I think I mentioned everything that I wanted to talk about initially. And just again, a reminder that if you are on the CHA waiting list and you've had any changes, specifically or particularly with your address, or any changes in your household size, just make sure you notify CHA so that we can update that. We see sometimes people, their families have grown while they've been on the list. They've had a few children, and now instead of need a 1-bedroom, they need a 3-bedroom. If you get to the top of the 1-bedroom list and you need a 3, then we're going to have to add the children, and then you get resorted onto the 3-bedroom list. You don't have to start all over again, but your position is going to be different depending on what household size you need. So just make sure you keep us up to date on any changes in your household, because that will help make sure we have the correct information and can get you housed faster. And again, final thing, people always ask, what is the wait time? That's a very difficult question. And I always tell people I don't like to estimate, because I will get a call in, 3 years and someone will say, well, you told me it was 3 years and I haven't been called yet. I don't want to give out any wrong information. The list really can vary. So you could be on a list and be number 1,000 and be on another list and be number 100. But the list that you're number 1,000 on, you could get housed quicker because that list moves faster. There's more turnover at that site. Maybe there's more 1-bedrooms and that's what you need. So it can really vary. So don't get discouraged if your numbers are all very high. Some of the lists do move quicker than others. And what I tell people is that, get on as many lists as you can, as you're interested in. You never know when something might open up. Don't apply to lists that you aren't interested in. But if you really want to be in Cambridge and you are happy to be on any of our waiting lists, get on all of them, and that'll give you the best chance of getting something more quickly.
Thank you, Hannah. That was excellent, and it was a great segue into our next speaker, Lynn Tyree, who will talk about other lists that you can apply to beyond Cambridge. That can, also help you stay in Cambridge, but if you're also, and we want everybody to stay in Cambridge, but if you're also interested and willing to go outside of it, she's going to talk about that. Just real quick, we're saving most of the questions and answers until the end, but there's two very specific to your presentation, Hannah. One is just, can you say the link again for Cambridge Housing?
Yes, so it's www.cambridge-housing.org. Or if you're comfortable with Google Cambridge Housing Authority, it should come up. And then once you're on the main page, there is a button in the top right corner that says apply for housing. And that'll take you, that'll take you to a page that has the link to apply, the information about the applicant portal, and a lot of other information. And then, was there another question, Maura?
Yeah, and you did answer it, but I think just something to highlight. What do you do if you do not have good access to the internet or computer? Can you still apply by paper? I know you said that folks can call. Maybe if you just want to speak to that for a sentence or two.
Sure. Yeah. So we don't typically do it on paper. What we would do is we would call you and walk you through it over the phone. That way it's already, if you do it on paper, then you still have to get it to us and then have to input it. If we do it for you right there, then we can confirm right then and there that all of your information's been entered, and can send you a receipt if you do have an email, or if you don't and you want us to email the receipt to a case manager or somebody else, we can do it that way. So we're definitely sensitive to, not everybody's even comfortable with a computer or doesn't have reliable access to a computer or a smartphone. You could do it on a smartphone as well. If you do need extra assistance, please reach out to us. The majority of the calls we get on a daily basis are about waiting lists and applications. So we're definitely prepared to reach back out to you and make sure that you can get on those lists.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Lynn?
Oh, thanks, Maura. Thanks, Crystal, for having me. I certainly do miss the fair that we've done in the past, and I certainly miss being able to do the workshops that we've done at the Multi-Service Center to help people with housing. So let me first say that housing search, as Maura said, can be very, very challenging, very complicated, very difficult. So a couple of things are: know where you want to live, know what you need, know is there a change expected down the road, know what you can afford, and do some preparatory work for permanent housing. So having said that, there are two kinds of housing that I like to kind of just give a global kind of overview. One type is market rate. That's the housing that you can just walk up and say, I can afford X amount of dollars out of my pocket, and let's do this and see if I qualify. The other is subsidized, where you pay a particular percentage out of your pocket, and another entity pays a percentage up to a cutoff point on your behalf. So that's what harken back to what Maura was talking about, the Section 8 vouchers and the mass rental voucher program. Those percentages as to who pays what percent vary a little bit, but they're programs that one might want to consider. Another thing that is very important is everything that says Cambridge does not necessarily mean Cambridge Housing, nor does it mean something from the city of Cambridge. So when you're looking for housing and you're applying, just be clear what it is you're applying to, what program, because they all have different eligibility requirements and those kinds of things. So for state public housing, there's a CHAMP application. It's put out by the state of Massachusetts, and it's one application that a person could fill out online, or you could get a paper copy, and you would fill it out online, and at the back of it, it lists every housing authority that you'd be interested in applying to. When you're going through that list, you want to be mindful of only checking off those places where you seriously would consider living. So you wouldn't want to check off a community where you thought, oh, I might get the upper leg over here and check it off. And then they offer you something and you say, oh, I didn't really want to live there. So you don't want to do that. Just check off the ones that you really want to be considered for. And that's called the CHAMP application. And you would get that at mass.gov. And in the search window, you would put CHAMP application, CHAMP application, and the application will come up. For subsidized housing applications such as Section 8, you can also go to mass.gov and put in subsidized housing, and a variety of information will come up relative to the various types of Section 8s that one could apply to. So you want to know what you're eligible for, what you're applying to, and how you would essentially apply to it. So having said that, it does not mean, like Hannah was saying, that I applied today and in 6 months I'm going to have a voucher in my hand and then I'm going to be able to go and find something. These wait lists are extremely long, and you want to get on as many wait lists as you qualify for. And during the wait time, you want to make sure you keep accurate records as to what you applied for, when you applied for it, and where you mailed it to. You want to have an accurate and current mailing address. It will be your responsibility to, as Hannah said, keep that address current and to check your mail. Depending on the type of housing you're applying for, you're going to need things like specific documents, birth certificates, social security cards. So while you're waiting for those applications to be processed, this is a good time to think about, do I have everything that I need for all household members for that application? And if not, this is the time to begin to gather those documents. Requesting replacement social security cards if you're able to, requesting birth certificates if you're able to. And we can at the Multi-Service Center can help with some of that. Some of those things require a fee. Some of those things require identification to get identifications. It's a little kind of weird, but this is the time you want to try to get those documents together. The other thing is that you want to think about who will your references be, and are they current? Do you have actual names, phone numbers, and addresses for those applications that require it? Most of the time, it's generally 2 to 3. I've seen some applications that have required 5. So once you get the applications, you just want to, again, keep a record of what it was you applied to, when, and where you mailed it. You can get applications or information from the Metro list, from Section 8. Sometimes public housing authorities will list whether or not their wait lists are open, which wait lists are open, and how to apply. Metro Housing has a Section 8. Metro Housing Boston has a Section 8 that one could apply to. As well as listings of units that landlords who are looking for tenants, ideally those with Section 8. Those persons that have Section 8 would not necessarily use those landlords, but sometimes those landlords will negotiate with people that don't have Section 8. You can afford the unit. You might want to take that time to look at your credit, depending on, again, where you're applying to and what you're applying for, your credit scores, your credit rating, and again, your references and things like that. So again, you can apply to public housing across the state through the CHAMP applications. One thing that you might want to keep in mind is that some housing authorities have state public housing as well as federal public housing, 2 separate applications. The CHAMP application is one application. You will check off any of the housing authorities that you're interested in. And of those housing authorities that you've checked off, you might want to Google the housing authority to see if they also offer federal applications, which are generally different. once you've submitted an application, you don't need to submit another application. Every application thereafter bumps the first one, and your date continues to change. So you want to make sure you know where you're applying to, what you're applying for, and just to document when you've applied, those kinds of things. According to my memory, there's privately owned buildings that one can apply to. If you have a Section 8 or a mass rental voucher in hand, you can apply to private developments. And you can get those listings through the mass housing. That's another resource that you can get. There's actually a book. You can go online to get that. And it'll list the places that either are project-based subsidies or will accept, well, most places will take a Section 8 voucher anyway, but you have to be qualified. So when I say qualified, that means they will process your application and look at all other aspects of the application in addition to the Section 8. So it's not just you have a Section 8 and that guarantees you admittance into a unit. It just says that you can apply there. So I think that's pretty much it. Know where you want to apply, know what you need to apply, know what you can afford. Think about the preparation for permanent housing to move in, which is usually something like a security deposit, first month's rent. If you have a Section 8, the security deposit can be equivalent to the contract rent. The first month's rent will be calculated by the housing authority that's issuing the voucher. And you may have to think about the moving costs, moving furniture from one unit to another. So that's another expense. And you might want to be aware, do you have any bills, utility bills in your name that could easily be transferred to a new address? If not, come and talk to us at the multi-service center and let's figure out next steps. Thank you.
Forgot to unmute myself. Thank you, Lynn. Before we move on to Lynette, can you just say, you gave some great tips, and I just wondered if you could, and I know you talked about CHAMP and you talked about Metro Housing, maybe say a little bit about the centralized wait list that exists and where to access that.
The centralized wait list, if you Google Mass Centralized Section 8, that application will come up. And it's a one-page application, and that application is part of a network of housing authorities that have agreed. We fill out this one sheet, submit it to one of the housing authorities, and they will be responsible for making sure all of the other housing authorities has a copy of your request to be on their wait list.
And I'll just say, correct me if I'm wrong, that Hannah and Lynn, that it goes to most housing authorities. However, Boston and Cambridge, you have to apply directly to. So it's important to fill out the centralized list so that you are on everybody's list, but the centralized list does not cover Boston and Cambridge. Both of those housing authorities require you to go to them directly.
Yes, the centralized wait list only covers, I would say, about 50 of the state's housing authorities. There's probably maybe almost 200 housing authorities across the state. So it's not a blanket. Thank you for bringing that up. It's not a blanket, one page fills all. It's one page. On that list, you'll see 50 housing authorities. You just choose one, mail it in, and they will send copies to the ones that are on their list. And then the others you'll have to check if you're interested in moving to another area altogether that's not on that list.
Correct.
Yeah, a lot of the smaller, a lot of the housing authorities in Massachusetts are very small. So a lot of those are encompassed on the centralized list, whereas CHA and BHA are larger housing authorities. So we maintain our own waiting lists.
Thank you so much. And so we will move on to Lynette Tolentino. And Lynette, I know you're going to talk about community development and inclusionary housing and the low income program. And I'm going to ask if you could touch base a little bit on the regional housing agencies and their centralized list just as one separate thing. Given that that's your background, putting you on the spot there.
Sorry, was unmuting myself in the incorrect area. Thank you, Mara and Crystal, for this opportunity. Even though I am virtual, I am clammy hands and nervous because this is always exciting to have the opportunity to present in front of a panel like this. So I am going to speak first on the CDD program. So first and foremost, my name is Lene Tolentino, and I work as an associate housing planner for the Community Development Department for the city of Cambridge. So could be a little bit confusing. One would say, well, then you just work at CHA. No, I work for the city and it's a separate department and it's different from Cambridge Housing Authority. So bear with me just a second. Sorry. Okay, so basically the Cambridge Community Development Department Housing Division, where I work, runs an affordable rental program that is different from CHA, as I stated to you before. We operate a program, well, two programs under one umbrella. And our programs came about based on the inclusionary zoning ordinance, which requires 20% of the units and new buildings in the city of Cambridge to have, to deem 20% of their units affordable units. With that being said, the city, through my programs, work with private management companies to develop and fill these units, and there are over 800 of these units. I think just about last year, we were roughly in about 850, and right now we're expanding. So before you know it, within a couple of years, we'll have closer to 1,000 units. With that being said, our websites, for all of the information that I'm going to provide you with now, because I am, it's a short amount of time, but there's a lot of information and I will speak as clearly as possible, is going to be www.cambridgema.gov/CDD/housing. And again, that information will be provided to you at the end of this webinar, and I think as well, Crystal said, in an email. So please don't think that you're missing out if you did not catch that. Now, for both of the programs that our office operates under our one umbrella, there is two applications because they are separate based on the income guidelines. So you would need to go to that website, print out that application. If you're having trouble doing so, then you would be able to communicate to us through email and we could mail that application out to you, considering the times that we're in right now. And you would have to submit a preliminary application. So this is a preliminary. This is not a final application that you're getting a unit. This is a preliminary to get on our wait pool. Now, I know Hannah spoke about wait lists, and I'm speaking about a wait pool. Two totally different things. We don't prioritize you based on the date and, first come, first serve, whoever came and applied first, then that's the order that we go in. We do wait pools because we look at people in terms of what preference pool you fit into. So what bedroom size you need, how many people are in your household, and then what of the preference points you obtain after your application is accepted. Your preliminary application is fully completed and accepted. With that being said, I'll discuss the waiting pool a little bit. So the preliminary application must be completed. Please make sure you thoroughly complete that from top to bottom. Don't miss a spot. If there's any area that doesn't qualify for you, just put NA, not applicable. When completing that, you're going to determine what your household size is by looking at how many people live in your household already. So we consider it a pre-existing household. So a pre-existing household means who lives with you now that you can prove on paper, on a lease, on tax documents, because we validate this in order to say, okay, you can move forward with those people for your household for your preliminary application. Now, when looking at size, we have units that range from studios and go all the way up to 4 bedrooms. It's very infrequent that we have 4 bedrooms, but it is a wait pool that you can still apply to. The majority of our applicants, though, apply from the studio all the way to the 3 bedrooms. If you're a studio applicant, there would only be 1 person in your household. Anything from a 1 bedroom all the way up to a 4 bedroom, you would be looking at a maximum of 2 people per bedroom, no more than that. So if you were a household of 9, then unfortunately you wouldn't qualify for our program because you would need to be in a 5 bedroom, and we don't have 5 bedrooms, okay? So now moving on, the next thing that you're going to look at is the income requirements. So if you have a voucher, you're waived. You know that your voucher, your Section 8 voucher qualifies in terms of the income guidelines, okay? But if you are a CDD applicant who is an income, all you have is your income that is going to be providing to cover the rent, then you would need to really scrutinize that income guideline. And with that being said, an example of that would be for a 1-person household, $42,280 all the way up to $70,749. For a household of 4 people, that would be $60,400 all the way up to $101,049. So it gives you a pretty larger range than Hannah's giving you. Wink, wink. So this is what makes our program a little bit different from Hannah's, is that we're trying to capture a different pool of people who don't just generally always qualify for, the low income housing. The next thing that you're going to look at is preferences. Now, when it comes to the preferences, you're going to really need to read the application to see the different preferences that are available and to see which one, if any, you qualify for. And don't be discouraged if you don't qualify for any of the preferences. Still apply. The preferences include residency, age of the children, and there's 2 categories currently for that, and then emergency need, which covers everything from homelessness, code violations, no fault eviction, overcrowded, and rent burden. Now that list of preferences is what we are currently to date right now on April 20th. That is the list of preferences. But we are publishing the new list of preferences that is actually going to have an expanded category. I won't go over that with you until that is fully out and published, but just keep an eye to the website for any of those changes that are up and coming. With that being said, for every preference that you feel like you qualify for, just remember you'll need to provide verification for that. So don't check off something if it's not something that you could provide for, because it's just going to delay your time in having your final courtesy letter sent to you to say that you qualify to be in that wait pool. Additionally, for those who work in Cambridge, that is not currently a preference, but it is considered a tier. So what that does is it puts you in a different sense of the pool in terms of where you're looked at and when you fall into queue to receive a final application. So now you've completed your application, you submit that in, and then we send you a letter, we let you know that you're added to our wait pools. And then the process continues on, and even though it's not a wait list, there is a wait period. And again, like Hannah said, I can't give you a timeline to that, but when your name does come up in queue as a household that matches a unit that is available, that is vacant, based on your preferences, based on your household size and what unit size you are requesting, then you would be sent a final application and we would move forward with screening you for eligibility, at which point we really scrutinize your income to make sure that your income and your assets do match. And the asset limit for the inclusionary program that I'm speaking of is $75,000. So we're going to make sure that you're all within range of the income and the assets, and then, move forward to try to get you eligible. And then the process will continue, which is just more detail about like lease signing and stuff like that. But we don't need to talk about that right now because that's when that time does come. Now, as I said, there's 2 programs that operate under one umbrella. So we have the inclusionary, we already talked about that. Now we're going to talk about middle income. So the only difference between the middle income program and the inclusionary program is that the middle income program is going to have a different income guideline bracket than that of the inclusionary. So with that being said, I'm going to give you some examples again. You're a household of 1, you're looking at $70 $8,750 all the way up to $101,500. 101,500. Yeah, 101,500. Excuse me. And for a household of 4 people, again, it would be that $101,50 and $101,050, excuse me, all the way up to $145,000. So again, a great opportunity for people who are making a little bit more money, but could use the help living in an affordable program. So you're going to look at those, and that right there is the range of 80 to 120%. Inclusionary was 50 to 80% of the area median income. So look on the website, see which one, you know, if you're guessing around about your income, it doesn't hurt to apply to both programs, you know. You're covering your bases, you know, because anytime between now and when potentially your name comes into queue for a final application, your income could change. So the more the merrier is how we look at it. But it is safer to get yourself into the wait pools sooner than later, only because when vacancies do come about, even though we don't operate as a wait list, your application comes in, it's date stamped, and that time is locked in queue. So when we are looking at your wait pool, that does then become a factor. Now, with that being said, just the same, always keep us updated. Any changes to your household, you can call, you can email, or you can go to the website and there's an update form. You can fill that out if you have change of address, phone number, email, because you always want to make sure that we can contact you and there's no delay. Fill that out, submit that back in. We'll make the necessary changes to your household to ensure that, you know, you're not losing out on an opportunity, you're not skipped if your name does come up in queue. Now, within the, back to the middle income, within the middle income, there are 2 different types of units. We have units that have set rents that look at your income in 2 different ways, on a high and a low level. And then you would be put into a set unit rent. And we also have units that are still based out of the 30% within the middle income. So there's also opportunity, you know, expanded opportunity within that. And like I said from jump, upcoming middle income units, upcoming inclusionary units, get your applications in, don't hesitate. It's even if you have questions, I tell people fill out the application even before you have a question and send it in, because it never hurts to have your application in, and you never know what can, you know, by the time that, you know, it queues for a vacant unit, if you could qualify for that. Just a little touch on the leasing process. It's comparable to pretty much any other, you know, organization that's running a leasing process. We do operate 12-month leases. You do recertify every year. Voucher holders recertify one way. People who have income that is not voucher, then you would recertify in just a different form of paperwork, to be honest with you. Additionally, if you are approved for a unit, literally you move in within 30 days of that timeline. And we also do affordable rent. With the affordable rent, we also offer affordable parking. So that's another nice little perk. But it's a great program. Please, our information will be provided to you from Crystal at the end of this webinar as well. So please reach out. No question is any question that we can't answer and or find an answer for. And we strongly look forward to seeing an influx of applications after this webinar. So Mar, what was the other topic? The second question you had for me?
Just one quick point on regional housing application. Centralized.
One more time.
The regional housing application, centralized application, if you want to make one point about that, which is, I know is just a separate.
Oh, you're trying to go old school. So basically within applying for regional, on the regional centralized waitlist, and correct me if I'm in the area that you wanted me to speak on, Mar, or if you want additional. There are many regional housing authorities, and you can apply to, you know, you have the option to apply to wherever you would like to apply to. We always tell households, and this is even outside of CDD, because when someone comes to us and they don't qualify, or they're like, what other options? Because I need something, you know, I need to just expand my horizons in terms of where I'm applying. We tell them, get your name on as many of the centralized waitlists as possible within all the different regional housing authorities that they are. So as you hear Hannah speak of Cambridge Housing Authority, there's BHA, there's a lot of different regional housing authorities. So be sure to look into those and apply. Some of them have different criteria from others in terms of, and when I speak of different criteria, I just mean that some of them do have emergency preferences that they oftentimes will allow that others won't. It's really based on which regional that you're applying to, but expanding your opportunity and applying to as many places is the ultimate goal in terms of allowing families the best option for affordable housing. And, you know, there's a lot more information out there than the people are aware of, and going out to all of these regionals, or not necessarily even going, but like requesting that information and getting your name on those wait lists is imperative to get yourself into an affordable living situation. And it's going to increase your opportunity to do so in a more timely manner and get your family in a stable living situation.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you, everyone. I'm sure a lot of folks I know this stuff to some degree, but, or maybe to hopefully a lot degree, given my job, but it's obviously very, there's a lot there. And as I said in the beginning, sometimes you have to learn a new language to get through it. And each of these folks, as well as others, are really happy to be there and help you get through all of this. There are a few, we have time to answer a few questions. Crystal, did you have any questions that you see that were unanswered or?
Yes, so thank you for everyone who's been supplying questions. Some of them have been answered within the Q&A, so please read the Q&A if you have a chance right now. As I'm fielding questions, I'm going to share my screen so that you can, let's see here, so you can contact directly, present. Oh, wow. Okay. So I don't think I did that the most effective way, but there we go. So the CHA link that was provided by Hannah, the emails to Hannah, Lynn, and Maria Mello for the Multi-Service Center, CDD, the link that was provided by Lene's email as well, and Maura's email as the housing liaison. And as I promised, you will receive a follow-up email with these resources and more. I'm gonna leave this up while I look at the queue. Well, I guess I'm gonna give everyone like 2 long seconds to look at this and take my word for it. You'll get this in an email. I'm gonna stop sharing so I can do the Q&A. And the Q&A, here we go. Let's see here. So does a 401k or an IRA, does that count as an asset is one of the questions right now that I think is probably important. Does anyone want to answer that?
I wasn't sure if that
will go,
was,
and then I'll piggyback off of her.
yeah, I wasn't sure if that was directed at Lene or not, but for CHA programs, yeah. So any asset that you have, which would include a 401k, IRA, retirement accounts, pension accounts, things like that, would count as an asset. So you would report that to us, and then we only count the income that you're receiving on it. So if, you know, it can be a little complicated, but you know, like the interest rate on the account, if you're only receiving $100 per year, that's what we would count as your income from that asset. We do, for some of our programs, we do have an asset limit of $100,000. But if you are elderly, then that requirement is waived. So it can vary by program, but yes, those would count as assets.
So for the CDD, for the inclusionary and the middle income, as I stated before, for the inclusionary program, it's a $75,000 cap on assets. For the middle income, it is $100,000. Once you become a resident, there's no longer an asset limitation. However, just the same as what Hannah spoke on, we do have waivers for elderly. in terms of that number being able to have another cap off versus what you see on the paper. In difference to what Hannah said, though, we aren't looking at your interest or your dividends that you've received. What we're looking at is on 401ks and IRAs, we are calculating in at 60% versus 100% of what is in that account. Number one. Number two, when it comes to CDCs, money market, stocks and bonds, trusts, we are looking at 100% of those accounts, as well as, you know, just your general checking, savings, any, your home buyers accounts, all those additional accounts that you may have. But we do request that information at point of final application. So not at point of preliminary application.
Okay, and I want to be mindful of time. We have a couple minutes left. CDD, can you apply online?
So we do not have our portal up and running yet as to be able to electronically apply. However, as I stated before, you can request the application from us. You can print it off of the web, complete it. And we have, within the means right now of us still kind of being in a COVID time, we have been working with people in terms of like how to get that back to us. We have a Dropbox outside of the building now at 344 Broadway. You can mail it back. You can also email it back.
Thank you.
Thank you. And given the time, I want to again thank everyone. There are a number of questions in the chat specific that we haven't addressed specific to community development. I will encourage you to reach out to Renee. There are a couple about the home buying programs. I can tell you that community development has ongoing regular workshops about that. And so again, you can get that information on the community development website or reach out to Renee. I would say again, for Cambridge Housing specifically, reach out to Hannah. And if you're starting in your journey and looking, really how do I navigate all of this, contact Lynn. She knows all of the different places, all of the resources, all the applications, and she'll walk you through it. I really want to, again, thank folks who attended today, thank the panelists. I also want to thank Stephanie Farrell, who has provided closed captioning for this panel today. And I want to thank my colleagues on the campaign committee that you'll be hearing more from us. Maria Mello, the director of the Multi-Service Center, has been in the background on this panel, and she's been part of putting all of this together. Krista Rosa, who you've heard from, is one of the founders of these workshops, and Emily Solomon, who's not with us today, but will be back. And we have a couple of upcoming workshops. Krista, if you can share your screen real quickly on that to show the fair housing workshop that will be presented next week, as well as actually the home buying one. I believe that will be the week after. So they are the next two Tuesdays, April 27th, same time, 3 to 4, fair housing and basic tenant rights. Also Zoom. And then the first Tuesday of May from 3 to 4, home ownership in Cambridge, resources for first-time home buyers and existing homeowners. I'm sorry that we didn't get to everyone's questions. Again, there will be more, contact us, there will be more panels, more information sessions. After the panel in May, we will be doing most likely monthly panels and webinars, or again, hopefully maybe in the fall, who knows, we'll be able to do some in-person events. But please stay in touch, please contact us, and thank you again. Bye-bye.
Yeah.